Hi everyone, this is Mindy Eggen and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be going over a bundle from Altenew that I think is perfect for a beginning stamper. So if you struggle with coloring or maybe trying to match up a background stencil, this bundle is going to be perfect for you. So here is a closer look at the bundle. This is the Elegant Tulips, and this is actually part of their Build a Garden series, I believe. So what you get in this bundle is a stamp set with that beautiful image and tons of different sentiments. Now there is also a coordinating die. The coordinating die cuts out not only the image, but also the sentiments, which I absolutely love. One thing I didn't show was that there is an inspiration booklet, so it gets you started on how to arrange it and some different color variations. And then we have the stencil. So I will be going over the stencil in more detail as I start creating my card, but they have etched markings in here, stencil 1, 2, and 3. And then there's detailed ones that are like A1 and A2, so you know how to line up your stencil. I will start by stamping my image. So I am using the Altenew stamp wheel, which has a sticky mat in it, and I'm going to be using Hammermill cardstock, which is a nice smooth cardstock. You can use Nina or whatever white cardstock you prefer. I'm placing my image down onto the cardstock, lining up the top plate of the stamp wheel to pick up the stamp, and then flipping this over so that I can ink it up. Now, one of the things that I do about 99.9% of the time is I ink up my image with a light gray ink. This happens to be Morning Frost from Altenew. You can also use a light brown. Now, you could just go ahead and stamp this in black ink right away, but I prefer to start with light gray because then I don't have to wait for my ink to dry. The color of the outline is not going to contaminate the colors when I start ink blending. If you use a black ink, I do highly recommend that you make sure it is dry, so heat set it with your heat tool. An important step in my process is that I am going to leave my image right where it is. Whether you're using a MISTI tool or a stamp wheel, leave your image right there if you are doing my method. Then I'm just going to carefully remove my cardstock, and I want to use the sticky mat from the stamp wheel. I am going to be placing an order actually with Altenew because I want to pick up a sticky mat so I don't have to remove it from the stamp wheel if I plan on using it with my stencils. I'll explain why a little bit later on in the video, but for right now, I placed my sticky mat down onto my glass work surface, placed my cardstock down, and now I'm taking stencil 1. So stencil 1 is going to color in the floral image of your design. Then we have different sections on here. So there's A1, A2, I think there's like A3 and A4. And I am starting out with A1. It is very easy to line up and figure out which petal needs to be lined up with the stencil. And then I pushed down around my stencil to stick it down to that sticky mat. I also placed some Post-it tape around the edges just in case I get a little carried away with my ink blending. And I'm going to start with a light yellow ink. Now, I tend to step up my ink blending a little bit and add multiple colors to multiple or to the same layer. You do not have to do it that way. That's just something I really enjoy doing. So that first layer that I did was a buttercream. The second color I'm coming in with on this same section of the stencil is going to be, I think it was baby pink or frosty pink. I will have all of the groups of colors that I'm using listed down below in the video description, but that pink was the lightest color out of this grouping. Then I'm going to come in with Coralberry, which is one of my all-time favorite colors from Altenew. And I always kind of start down where it's the center of the flower and blend my way out towards the end of the petal. But notice that I'm leaving a lot of that yellow highlight up there. I'm going to carefully remove my stencil and shift it so I'm over in the A2 section. This is going to fill in more of the petals. Now this time I'm coming in with Warm Sunshine, which is like the second lightest color out of this collection. Again, I'm going to add that over those open areas of the stencils. If you need your Post-it tape to mask off other areas so you don't kind of over ink blend, be sure to grab that. Now I'm going to come in with that coral berry again, and here I'm blending out towards the edge of the petals, but I'm getting lighter with my hand so that I'm not completely covering that yellow. I still want a nice highlight up there. but I'm going to step it up even more by bringing in ruby red. Again, you do not have to add this many colors to each layer. This is just something that I find relaxing, and I love all the different shades that it creates. Then we have the last layer of the petals. So again, I lined this up with the open area of the stencil, and I'm going to come in with that yellow once more using my small blending brushes. You're going to see me use a variety of blending brushes from Altenew in this because I do find that they have a purpose, and these particular ones just work really great for filling in those smaller areas. On this last section, I did step it up to ruby red to really add some dark contrast in there. Then I peeled that last one up, and the last section we have is adding these centers to the tulips, which I did with, I believe, lava rock. So it's a really, really dark gray. Now I can work on doing the leaves and the stems. So that is going to be stencil 2, which is etched on the stencil itself. And once again, I am going to use those kind of sub etchings to figure out where I need to start, which is going to be the stems. I really don't think it would be wrong if you started out of order. You just want to make sure you're on stencil 2 to do your leaves, which you would obviously notice if it wasn't the right one. Again, I am using the sticky mat to hold my stencil in place. My hand holding that stencil down, I think, is really just habit for me. You really don't need to hold it down because the sticky mat does a great job. So for this first section of the leaves and the stems, I started with aloe vera, and then I brought in a little bit of matcha tea, and I just added a little bit of that dark color right on the edge of the leaves. I can peel that away, line up the second section, which you can tell is very easy to line up. Bringing in now, I'm starting with that matcha tea, and this time I'm going to step it up a little bit and add kind of that contrast and dimension by bringing in swamp green. And there are plenty of ways that you could be stenciling this, whether it's using a magnetic work surface or just simply taping it down to your mat that you're working on. I am finding this sticky mat is very helpful. Now I'm moving on to the last layer or the last section of leaves. For this one, I'm going to start out with that swamp green and then bring in oak moss to really kind of add some darkened areas in there, maybe some shadows. So this was really quick and easy to color up. If you struggle with maybe using markers or colored pencils, using your inks and some blending brushes with these stencils makes it super quick. There isn't a lot of thought process involved because all you need to do is grab maybe a bundle of inks, whether it is the pinks or the greens, and just go through those different shades to add your color. You don't have to step up the ink blending like I did. Now this is going to create our pot. So you can see I lined up the open area of the pot. This is stencil number 3. And I started out with Dewdrop, which is a nice light teal. For the kind of design work on that pot or that vase, I used Aqualicious. And then the last one, which is going to be the base, I am going to use Teal Cave. Now with the Teal Cave, I started kind of more towards the back of that base and then got a little more light-handed as I got towards the front. I thought that added a nice highlight area to it. And then I can peel that away and my stenciling and coloring is done. So what I like to do is peel this up and I'm going to place this back into whatever stamp positioning tool you're using. Here, I put that sticky mat back in, and when I brought in the top plate to line up my stamp set, for the most part, it lined up pretty good. I was maybe off an absolute tiny, tiny smidge, but this is where I want to buy another sticky mat. So I don't have to remove my sticky mat out of the stamp wheel. I can leave everything in place. But this one, it all still worked out. If you're using a MISTI tool, you won't have to worry about this. You just always make sure it's tucked down into that same bottom corner that you started with. And here I am stamping my image with the jet black ink. So I'm bringing in that nice dark outline. Now that that's all stamped and my colors just really pop with that black outline, I'm going to put away my inks and clean off my stamp set. Since I had my stamp wheel out, I figured I might as well just go ahead and stamp a sentiment. And this particular bundle has just a bunch of different sentiments on here that you can use. And the image, you can change up your colors. So there's really such a great variety of card fronts you can create with this particular bundle. I brought in some Hammermill cardstock. Once again, these are all cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I placed the sentiment down, picked that up with the plate, flipped it over, and inked it up with the jet black. I am going to stamp it twice to make sure I'm getting some really good crisp lines because I'm not pushing super hard. Then, because this bundle is so super amazing, there are coordinating dies for all the sentiments. So I die cut out the image and also the sentiment using those coordinating dies. And I also die cut out an extra white piece for each of them. I layer these together using my liquid glue, and I'm working on a media grip mat, which is just going to catch any extra glue that might seep off of the sides. And it's really easy to clean up these media grip mats versus my glass work surface. Now, for the background for my floral image, I could just add this right to the white note card. It would be very stunning, very clean and simple. But of course, I want to use this trellis stencil. And I really want the colors to be coming in from the bottom left-hand corner. But because I like to ink blend from the right-hand side, I turn my cardstock. It's just easier for me. So I'm really starting in that top right using the lightest color. I think this is Dewdrop. And I'm ink blending from the corner and working my way down towards the other corner, but fading off into white. So I'm not pushing down as hard with my blending brush as I get down towards that other corner. Now I'm bringing in, I believe this one was Aqualicious. It's the next shade in that particular line. Again, I'm going to start in that corner, work my way down, and just get more light-handed as I get down towards that corner. I'm going to bring my sticky mat back out again, place my cardstock down. Again, I am working up in that top right corner just because that's what's comfortable for me. And I'm placing the trellis stencil over the top. So I am going to go over this with that same Aqualicious, very, very light-handed. I didn't want this to be super prominent. I just wanted it to kind of be more of a subtle background. What I really love with this sticky mat is I can kind of peel up my stencil in that one corner to take a peek underneath and see if I need to come in a little bit more with the color. So once I'm happy with how this is looking, I'm going to put everything away. And with this sticky mat, I usually will just clean off with whatever tidy towel or stamp chamois I use to clean off my stamps. And I love to add splatters to my backgrounds. So I am going to bring in some black ink. I think gold or any type of shimmery splatter would have looked really pretty too. I was just kind of in a mood for a really bold splatter. So I put a little bit on my work surface, picked it up with my paintbrush, and then just tapping my paintbrush to add the splatter to the background. I don't want to get too carried away, but I love how there are smaller and bigger splatters on there. Then while that's drying, I am going to score my card base. So this is going to be an A2 side folding card base. Fold that in half and reinforce that fold with my bone folder. I'm going to add some tape runner to the front of my card, but I noticed that my splatter was still shiny, which told me that it was not dry. So I brought in my heat tool and just went over the front of that and the back to make sure it wasn't going to warp and make sure that those splatters are dry because I don't want to smear them. Then I can bring it over and add this to the front of the card. Notice I turned my cardstock so the darker corner is in the bottom left-hand side. And I don't rub my hand over the top. I just gently pat it because I don't want to risk anything not being dry and then smearing. I'm going to add some foam tape behind my image and also the sentiment. And then I'm going to add these to the front of the card. So I'll remove the backing of the foam tape and my potted flower is going to go over in that bottom left-hand corner where that darker area is. There's going to be a little bit that kind of hangs off the edge. I could trim that off, but I decided to just leave it for right now. And then same thing with my sentiment. I'll peel off the backing of that foam tape and I'm going to have it just slightly overhanging my floral image. I could have added some embellishments to this, but I think the black splatters were really enough. I didn't want to take away from that or add too much to the background. And there we have our finished card project. Really easy to put together. I think the image is fairly simple. There's not a ton of layers to it, and everything coordinates beautifully. Again, I will have all of my supplies listed down below in the video description and over on my blog as well. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you again real soon.